Ink Ribbon.
In the early days of my channel, I was just making videos for fun. No fact checking, no finding sources, none of these standard practices I apply to my videos now. I recently rewatched my 50 Facts About Lara Croft video and was so horrified at how bad it was that I am remaking it today so that I can sleep at night. After watching countless developer interviews, reading old gaming magazines, and digging through the web, I'm happy to say, from anime eyes to proposals from guys, here are 50 facts about Lara Croft. In case you don't already know, Lara Croft is an archaeologist and adventurer and is one of the most famous video game characters of all time. Lara Croft's birthday is February 14th. In the original timeline, she was born in 1968, which would make her 57 this year. In the Legend timeline, she was born in 1977, making her 48 this year. And in the Reboot timeline, she was born in 1992, making her 33. Starting on the PS1's limited hardware, Lara was made up of about 350 polygons and a small texture atlas. She ended up going up to about 4,500 polygons in the Angel of Darkness. Lara was born into an aristocratic family, where she was expected to have manners and behave as an upper-class woman would be expected to, but she found that life to be very stifling and boring, taking far more interest in finding secrets from the past, leading to her becoming both an archaeologist and an adventurer. The proper way to address Lara would be the Countess of Abingdon, resulting from her inheriting her father's wealth and earldom, but she prefers to be addressed simply as Lady Croft, given to her as a courtesy title. As it's famously known, Lara Croft originally started as Laura Cruz, being of Latin or South American descent, before being reworked into the British heroine we know now. Initially, one of the inspirations for her face came from Swedish singer Nene Cherry, but she was also inspired by the comic book character Tank Girl. On top of this, Toby Gard noticed while watching people play Virtua Fighter at an arcade that most of the players were selecting female fighters, which helped solidify his choice to create a main female character. During these early game concepts, one version included Laura Cruz being hired by a billionaire to find several artifacts around the world to create a portal to an alternate universe. The twist would have been that this billionaire was actually a Nephilim, which is interesting because reviving a Nephilim ended up becoming a plot point in Tomb Raider: The Angel of Darkness. This is the earliest known render of Lara. Dubbed Cruz and the Chaos Raiders, this shows Lara and all the enemies she would have had to deal with in the original game's concept. Toby Gard was an up-and-coming game designer who was hired by Core to work on a game for the Sega CD called BC Racers, before being moved to the project that would become Tomb Raider. His job on the first Tomb Raider game included building and animating most of the game's characters, storyboarding the FMVs, and managing the level design team. While Toby Gard was one of the creators of Lara Croft, he ended up leaving Core right after the first game was finished, being very unhappy with the way Lara was being promoted and sexualized. He did end up returning for Tomb Raider Legend, Anniversary, and Underworld though. Not counting promotional materials and commercials, Lara has been portrayed by a total of 13 actresses as of writing this video, both on and off camera. In chronological order, these include Shelley Blonde, Judith Gibbons, Jonelle Elliott, Angelina Jolie, Keely Hawes, Charlotte Sperry, Minnie Driver, Camilla Luddington, Harriet Perring, Abigail Stahlschmidt, Francesca Aston, Alicia Vikander, and Haley Atwell. Lara's proportions have changed and evolved throughout the franchise, slowly going from exaggerated to more realistic throughout the years. Because female characters in gaming had never been presented like this before, the range of reactions and tendencies from players was very strange and all over the place. Some players felt the need to protect her, some players fell in love with her, and others would enjoy intentionally killing her.
Lara, and when I saw her on the screen, it was interesting to watch the kind of way that people would interact with her, in particular when I first created her, because there was an urge to protect her right? But then there was this other curious urge that I was seeing in other people, and not me so much, but in other people, which is they just loved killing her. It was a very strange thing. People would constantly take her to the very highest places and throw her off head first. And there was a strange power thing that people were experiencing over this virtual character.
As of right now, Lara has a total of 6 Guinness World Records, including most magazine covers for a video game character and best-selling video game heroine. In issue 63 of PlayStation Magazine, an interview revealed that Core attempted to rework and change Lara. After extensive polling and market research among fans, they found that the overwhelming majority did not want her to be changed, so instead they opted to put her in a different situation, hence Angel of Darkness being a much grittier and more serious game. Surprisingly, this poll from fans is also the reason Curtis was introduced as a playable character, with many fans asking for a new additional character. Some of the more dangerous artifacts Lara has found, she decided to keep in her manor, not because she wants them, but more so because she wants to keep them out of dangerous hands. Some of these include the Dagger of Jean, the pieces of the Scion of Atlantis, and, technically, the Ark of the Covenant. There is an infamous rumor that Lara started out as a male character and then was changed, but this rumor is false. She did have her head and face changed a few times, but she was always meant to be a woman and was the backbone of the game's premise from the start. While Angel of Darkness was the first game in the franchise to use motion capture for cutscenes, Underworld marked the first time we saw motion capture used for actual gameplay animations. Due to Lara having so many abilities, it took 3 women to do the motions for her, one for gunfire and stunts, one for acrobatic moves, and one for acting scenes. The closest thing we've seen to a real-life Lara Croft was an Australian woman named Joan Howard, who caused controversy due to the fact that she took and kept a large collection of ancient artifacts. She was 95 years old at the time that this news story was going viral, which was in 2017, so yeah. When Sony and Eidos were looking to expand the franchise to international markets, a common practice was to tweak the appearance of characters for the Japanese market, as demonstrated by Crash Bandicoot here. It was requested that the Japanese release of Tomb Raider featured Lara with anime-looking eyes. This was almost agreed on, but the developers ultimately refused. Lara's classic outfit consists of a teal-green top, brown shorts, and boots. Her top is actually a one-piece bathing suit with a pair of shorts over it. When the live-action models dressed in her original outfits, they tended to use spandex, latex, or other shiny materials, due to the way it appears in the game. While it is shiny in the renders, this is only because early CGI simply made everything shiny, which you can see if you look at her skin, boots, and even hair. I mean, look at the shiny bricks in this render. It's ambiguous on how fluent Lara is in different languages, but she seems to have the ability to speak or understand several languages. We see her read Egyptian, Greek, and Norse inscriptions, and we also hear her speak a bit of Japanese and Russian.
When Takamoto arrives, however, it may cause you some inconvenience.
To say that Lara is a globetrotter is probably an understatement. Among the places she's been to are Africa, Asia, Antarctica, Egypt, the Americas, and more. I was assuming she's been to all 7 continents, but it seems that Lara has never been to Australia, except for issue 7 of the comic series Tomb Raider Journeys, which isn't canon or even connected with the comic book timeline. At many trade shows and events, it became standard practice to hire models as real-life stand-ins for Lara. The reason this was done is because they found a lot of fans desperately wanted to meet Lara, but because she wasn't a real person, this was the best workaround. And the reason the models were changed for every game is so that fans wouldn't get too attached to one particular model instead of the character of Lara herself. Models for Lara also have to undergo a lot of training, both for physical abilities and rules to follow when interacting with fans, since they are not only representing Lara, but also the entire franchise. For promotions, there was a virtual Lara interacting with fans, with her voice actor in a booth behind the scenes. In an interview, Judith Gibbons talked about her experience speaking to people at E3 and the surprisingly inappropriate questions she got from some attendees.
And I'm sorry if this is going to sound a bit offbeat, I should say, but the first we got ready in the telly things and, headphones and all that, and because they screamed me out and all that, got ready, I thought, right, I know what's going to ask me, and I said, so you went, so Lara, do you have periods?
What? No way.
What? And I literally, I don't know what, I just went, well, that's not a very nice thing to ask a lady, is it? Sort of. So everyone was going.
Despite not being a real person, Lara has received many gifts, and even a few marriage proposals, with developers receiving these in the mail and having no idea how to respond or what to do.
Play a game with a female lead character.
Yes.
And I was excited to see guys actually play this woman.
Yeah.
And eventually I became the PR manager for Tomb Raider 2.
Yep.
And it was really weird because we would get Valentine's Day cards and chocolates and weird stuff sent to the office for Lara Croft. So it became this
What, from who? From fans?
From fans, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Insanity.
I think we got something even weirder in the mail, which I won't discuss.
Oh my
but
God.
It got kind of weird at a certain point, but it was very interesting to see that.
Lara once did an interview on German TV with a very uncanny model used.
Hi.
Guten Abend, bitte. Lara, du bist eines der meistbegehrten Cybergirls überhaupt.
Entschuldigung, aber ich wusste nicht, dass wir schon beim Du angekommen sind.
She also starred in several commercials in the UK for a drink called Lucozade, which, from what I gathered, is a drink similar to Gatorade, but with less sugar and less sodium. In Lara's home level, players were able to lock Winston in the freezer, with the remasters even providing a freezing effect on him. For years, this was just for fun, but in the Blood Ties DLC for Rise of the Tomb Raider, this was made canon, where, in the file Little Angel, Winston describes a young Lara setting a trap for him and locking him in the freezer.
Later in the day, she set a trap for me. In the walk-in freezer, of all places. Before I knew what was happening, I found myself locked inside. Mrs. Sheffield discovered me an hour later, shivering and somewhat peeved.
Lara's dual pistols were inspired by a few things, but mainly from a Hong Kong action movie called Hard Boiled, and from the original short of what became Aeon Flux. Several famous artists and bands have songs dedicated to Lara Croft. These include Depeche Mode, Moby, and more. Lara has appeared as a guest character in several other game franchises, including Fall Guys, Fortnite, Call of Duty, Final Fantasy, and more. In the first game, Lara was missing her braid during gameplay, instead replaced with a bun. Gavin Rummery, programmer on the first two Tomb Raider games, explained that it had to be dropped because it didn't work properly with all the acrobatic moves, and said it was more like she had an electric eel attached to her head than a ponytail. But by the time Tomb Raider 2 came up, they were able to figure it out and got it working. After the franchise rights were acquired by Square Enix, the 2013 game was a ground-up redesign of the entire series, changing everything from the gameplay to the story, and more than anything, Lara herself. They changed her biography, her age, her appearance, and her personality, giving us what is now referred to by the Tomb Raider fans as the Reboot Trilogy. Lara has appeared as an Easter egg or reference in countless media, including movies, TV shows, and other games. I did an entire video on those if you want to check them out.
The Great Hall is exactly like the one in Lara Croft's house, in Tomb Raider 2 on PlayStation.
Look, it's Jenny Bowen. She's got the body of Lara Croft, the pouty good looks of Resident Evil's Jill Valentine, and the frank eroticism of Rosie O'Donnell.
Again, even though Lara isn't a real person, she managed to release an album in France. It was an EDM album with a mix of other genres, and even though it's in English, it was exclusively released in France. Throughout the series, Lara's home has gotten several redesigns, each existing in their own timeline. First was Croft Manor, which she inherited from her aunt. Then, in the Legend timeline, we have Abingdon Estate, which belonged to her father, and Lara simply inherited. And in the Survivor timeline, we got Croft Manor again, though this time being redesigned and expanded, while also being a sort of combination of the first two of Lara's homes. In 2001, we got the live-action movie adaptation starring Angelina Jolie. At the time, this was considered one of the best film adaptations of a video game ever. Initially signing on to do Tomb Raider partially because of all the places she'd get to visit, the experience ended up changing her life drastically, specifically in Cambodia, leading her down a path of humanitarian aid and also where she met her adoptive son.
My first trip, I met a kid at a transit center who had a gunshot wound, and I don't want to talk about it. And I asked her what would have happened to him, or what's happened to him, or what could be done, and found out that they said he was probably just going to die because, well, we should fly him out of here, we should do something, we should get him hospital care, and you know, realizing that this is one kid in thousands, and you can't do that, really. It doesn't work that way. So he would die, and he was alone, and he was really scared, and he was just a kid.
You believe, did you hear any more about him?
No, you don't.
In a series of commercials for Visa, Lara Croft was once played by Sofia Vergara. The original story for the first Tomb Raider game was interestingly different. In the manual, it states that Lara, instead of being born into her status, Lara was married into wealth, and on the way home from a ski trip, she was in a plane crash that killed her husband and everyone else on board, with her being the only survivor. On top of that, her family disowned her for not adhering to their lifestyle. All of this was scrapped by the time Tomb Raider 2 came out though. The team behind the Tomb Raider games had been running at a grueling pace and was totally burnt out after making the first 3 games. By the time they got to the 4th game, they decided it was time to end the franchise and did so by killing Lara. The team had been so relieved that she was dead that they all went out for drinks to celebrate her death, until they realized that they had been ordered to continue the series with Chronicles and what would become Angel of Darkness. Lara Croft's favorite food is beans on toast. I'm American, so I have no idea what a Jaffa cake is, but apparently Lara really enjoys them. They are especially prevalent in the comics. Throughout the games, Lara has acquired several artifacts, both real and fictional. Among the real-world ones that she's found are the Spear of Destiny, Excalibur, the Philosopher's Stone, and more. They obviously don't have the supernatural abilities like they do in the games, but the legends and history around them are real. Lara isn't afraid of many things, but one thing confirmed is that she is scared of corgis. Growing up, her aunt had corgis who bit her on several occasions. This might also be why she doesn't have any pets. Lara has killed several animals, creatures, and mythological beings that should not exist in modern times or at all. These include a T-Rex and velociraptors, multiple yetis, the goddess Shiva, an ancient dragon, Egyptian mummies, and more. As of writing this video, there is a new Tomb Raider game in development that will bring us a unified Lara, combining all of the stories and timelines into one. In the official art release for this, you can see her wielding her dual pistols, wearing her original outfit, and also wearing the necklace from the reboot trilogy. But what will this mean for Lara? I guess we'll have to wait and see. So that's a much better look at Lara Croft and all the amazing things she's brought into the world. If there's anything I left out, please let me know down in the comments and tell me what surprised you the most. And if you learned something new in this video, be sure to fire your iconic dual pistols at that like button. What other game characters would you like to see a facts video on? Let me know down in the comments, and until next time, I'm Kai Morgan, and as always, thanks for watching Ink Ribbon.
Lara Croft made it okay for me to show off. Crash Bandicoot made me into a silly dude. My parents didn't like me, I was a problem child.